Hello friends and fellow gardeners. It is Monday, July 8th, 2020. 1 week ago I did my first garden tour and I don't think there's a lot difference, but I did want to stick to my weekly filming schedule. So I will show you what's been done in the garden. Again, we'll start at this end. Basically, I have just been dumping leaves on these potatoes. They're looking really good. Some of them are starting to blossom, but just mounding leaves on them. I've started hauling composts for next year's new beds. Right here, there was still some weeds growing, so I left the leaves there, and same thing for here. That's why I didn't continue that row, because there were still weeds that I wanted to die off. The squash and melons and whatever it is I planted here, none of them are thriving. It really just goes to show that you were so much better off planting that family from seed. They really don't like to be transplanted. So we'll see what happens. Like I mentioned last week, it's just a bonus, whatever food we get off of there, so I'm not too worried about it. This is our fancy dancy water catchment system. We do not have drip irrigation here, and the house is on a well, so there needs to be a way to water plants in a drought that doesn't involve taking water from the well, because at that point it could go dry. The lilies here are looking better to me, so that's exciting. The irises down the end aren't looking so much better, but they are putting off new growth, so that's promising. Not much change here with the perennial flowers. They're just growing. More potatoes. These right here have blossoms. So that means that we are not that far away from a potato harvest. They went in the ground the end of April. I'll have to look last year. I don't know when I harvested, but hopefully we'll get a good crop. This is the poor bed that I planted way early, and a lot of stuff didn't come up. This salad blend lettuce, those plants are the only ones that came up. So in here I transplanted 3 peppers that I had. The tag came out of them, so they're mystery pepper. The peas these were planted March 18th. They are finally flowering. So the moral of the story is planting early is not better. 2 more mystery peppers. They're a different type than the first kind, so I put these together. The radishes are coming. The kale is coming. And look, transplanted 2 more mystery peppers here. So when they start producing, I'll be able to tell what they are, but right now, no dice. And I want to show you this calendula. Again, planted early in March. Calendula can take a frost. These plants are looking better than they did, but they're not looking good. And further down the line, I'm going to show you some calendula that were newly planted out, and they look 100 times better. Not much changing here with the garlic. The zinnia sunflower bed, again, not much change. Something got to some of the zinnias, so I'm going to be filling in those holes with some transplants. They are just now getting their first set of leaves, so they'll be going in a week or 2, I hope. The tomatoes are growing. Pretty soon we're going to be able to start staking them. I did start transplanting, you can see, some basil in between the plants. They grow well together. Some people say the tomatoes taste better. I don't know if I believe that. Some people say that basil repels hornworms. I do believe that. So I started a bunch of basil plants, and I've been slowly putting them in between the peppers when I think that they're ready to go out. Not great germination here with the strike beans, so I've been planting more green beans. I just harvested this lettuce this weekend, and you can tell it's ready to be harvested again, so that makes me happy. These peas are looking good. The kale is looking really good. We'll be harvesting from them as well. And then I wanted to show you that these calendula were started from seed on April 1st and then transplanted later outside. And they just look way better than the ones started outside in March. My Bluelake beans, these are new. I think I planted them last week and they have come up. And then over here is spinach that's just starting to come up. Over here we have my 2 experiments. Remember, this was a cucumber that was transplanted. This was the same variety that I planted from seed on the same day, and you can see that the seed has definitely caught up to the transplant, and it's going to be overtaking it soon. This experiment over here, let me get out of the sunlight, this was planted by seed. The transplant didn't make it. So again, really, they prefer to be started from seed and not transplanted. We've got all kinds of zucchinis and yellow squashes in this aisle, along with some volunteer potatoes, because that's where the potatoes grew last year. Nothing changing again with the potato or the tomatoes, except more basil in between them. This bed I am getting ready to plant. I've got some volunteer tomatoes here, and right there from last year. So I think I'm going to try to dig those and find a home for them just to see what kind they are. More lettuce that's doing great. Transplanted cucumbers that are not doing so great. This row doesn't look it, but it's almost planted up. You can see where I watered. I planted some strike beans there. And then on the other side, I've got some Bush Champion cucumbers that I transplanted. They are not looking too bad, so that's good. And these are 3 peppers. These are boonie peppers planted from seeds that I got from peppers I bought in Guam. So I'm interested to see what happens with them. Tomatoes amongst all of my volunteer cilantro. I noticed that most of the tomatoes put blossoms on at the same time. It was about a week and a half after I transplanted them, and they all basically put on blossoms. And I was picking some of them off because I wanted the plants to grow larger. But then I was listening to Craig LaHoulier, who literally wrote the book Epic Tomatoes, and he says even on his indeterminate tomatoes, he does not pluck off the buds. So I'm letting it go. We'll see how it goes. The the peppers are looking good. I've got some blossoms coming on the cayennes. The eggplants are suffering from flea beetle attacks, so I had to spray them with neem oil. Here, I didn't know what to do with some of the asparagus that we're trying to save from the bed at home that got taken over by Lily of the Valley. So I had an empty spot in this bed and I planted them here, and they're actually growing and putting some sprouts off. So I hope that they will come back next year. This garlic is looking well. I've noticed that some of the bottom leaves are starting to die off, so it shouldn't be that much longer. Usually the end of June into July, I think, is when it's time to harvest the garlic. So when this row and the other garlic row is harvested. That'll be 2 more rows that I hope to fill with green beans, because that's one of my goals this year is to put up green beans. I didn't put any up last year. I didn't plant enough, so that's my goal this year. One of my other goals is to be more diligent about harvesting and preserving herbs. So I've been doing well. I think about 3 mornings this week, I went out and I picked catnip, oregano, yarrow, sage, parsley. I know there was more. Raspberry leaves, and they're in the dehydrator. So hopefully I will be all set when it comes to needing herbs for salves and tinctures. That's it. Short little tour today, but like I said, I just wanted to keep on schedule, and if nothing else, this is documentation for me of what's going on in the garden and when. No pests or diseases yet on the tomatoes. I know it's coming, so one of the things I need to do this week is spray them with aspirin water. Supposedly the salicylic acid in tomatoes, or in aspirin, triggers the tomato immune system so that when the pests do come, they're stronger for it. So basically it's a 600 milligram of aspirin, non-coated, dissolved in a gallon of water, and you just spray the leaves. So I'm going to do that because I certainly do not think that poses a safety issue as far as eating the fruits. If I put aspirin in my body, I'm okay with putting it on my tomato plants. So that's the goal for this week, is to get that done. Hopefully, within not so many days, it'll be time to start tying the tomatoes up. They can grow 1 to 2 inches a day, so they can get ahead of you real quick. All right, happy growing. See you next week.